In 1977, we got 007 For Your Eyes Only. This movie is the next installment in the James Bond franchise, bringing back Roger Moore as James Bond. And I think this is amazing. So, we get to see James Bond sent out to Greece because there's this group that is smuggling like a whole bunch of stuff, including drugs and like tons of other crap that's not really expanded upon in the movie very well. But and like I feel like something that the James Bond movies tried to do, like towards like past the 60s, but like in the 70s onward, they tried to like show like, hey, we can do some pretty sick car chases, and they really showed off in each movie. Because here, there's like two really solid police chases. I mean, not police chases. There's two really solid chases that I feel like we should talk about because they are really cool. So again, it mainly takes place in Greece because there's all these smugglers, and yes, they get to the bottom of it. And I didn't realize this, but the main villain in this movie plays the main villain in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. The guy that plays Donald in that movie plays the main villain here, which is kind of cool because I feel like there's a lot of correlation with James Bond movies in the 70s and then the Indiana Jones movies in the 80s. I feel like they have a lot of connections, and that's cool to seeing like another one I'm noticing. It's like, hey, maybe these movies aren't so different after all. Anyways, so again, it goes about like a spy business, like trying to find these things. He eventually gets like involved, and it's like, oh, what have I done? But you see, when he sneaks into this area where these dangerous smugglers, see, there's this awesome police chase because they're like, and then he eventually gets to like a pool, and there's this guy like that seems to be at the head of this operation. He's not, but later on, he's like, killed Mr. Bond, and then he just like casually just uses all these things at the pool. He uses the freaking umbrella, and it knocks out like two guys, and then he's disarmed, but everybody else has like machine guns, freaking like Glocks, all of that stuff, and he manages to get away. And eventually, he steals a car, or he doesn't steal a car. He got in this car with this lady, but then he eventually is in the driver's seat. And then he's going down like this hill and everything, and each of these like cars are like swerving down hills, and there's some of these wide shots where it just goes down. You can see him like swerving through these streets, like up and down like these mountains. Basically, it's just like driving in West Virginia. Anyway, so eventually all the cars are gone. There's some really cool chases. One goes down a mountain, awesome, absolutely epic. And yeah, that's where that whole sequence ends, and they go through Greece trying to find whoever did this. And eventually he finds this group of people that are like, you know what, Mr. Bond, I want to help you. So there's this really cool sequence where they're smuggling onto this ship, and because like they have to smuggle things across country, that's the whole thing about the villains. And they go onto this thing, and they're in like this ship, this cargo ship, they're hoping to ship all this stuff through. And it's this awesome shootout. It's not as good as the one in the previous installment, which was absolutely incredible. But it shoots them all down. It's really cool. And eventually, all this stuff happens, being by a bit of action sequences, a little bit of bonding with the Bond girl. And I feel like there's two different Bond girls in this movie, because there's this one girl, they think, hey, is this the Bond girl? No, she just leaves for like the whole movie. And then you think, is this the Bond girl? Well, yes. And, well, it's like, the title of this movie is shown twice, because once we see it on like a paper that's like classified for James Bond only, and then, at the very end, we get to see the Bond girl say, "For Your Eyes Only," which is like the title of the movie, that's like the last line of the movie, and then there's this pair that plays the whole thing, and there's this like weird boat scene, where first they go down, and they're exploring like this sunken ship. And then there's this guy that goes down in this like goofy suit with all these like glass things on it, and like these windows. And it's like, you stop it! It's like this huge mech that's like this looks like horrible to wear. And then it's just like, stop it, Mr. Bond. And then he just kind of like blows him up, and then they leave. But then there's this ship that the main villain's on, and then they're like, no more, Mr. Bond. You and the Bond girl are done. But then they obviously escape because he did a bunch of cool things. Yeah. Something else that's cool about this movie is the opening sequence, which is my most favorite part about the movie. I think it's absolutely incredible. But anyways, we get to see there's this guy in a wheelchair that's like and he's the same villain from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where he's in Switzerland and the main bald guy, he's here, he's back here, but he's in a wheelchair and he gets on a helicopter, and James Bond gets on a helicopter after visiting the funeral of his dead wife. Because remember, at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the main villains got away, but they shot his wife. So he visits the grave, he gets on a helicopter, but then the main villain from that movie that killed his wife figures out like remote controls, like how they control the helicopter, and then he's just like flying around the edge to try and manipulate it. He gets in control of the helicopter, and eventually he gets in control. And what he does is he flies back to where the villain is. The side of the helicopter, like the railing, hooks the back of the wheelchair onto it, like picks him up, drives over to this huge smokestack, just drops him in. It's like that. It's like bye, and then that's just where it ends. That's pretty cool, you know, like avenging his wife's death, former wife's death, but he gets over her pretty quickly considering some of the things he does in this movie. Just saying. Anyway, so I love this movie. The good, the okay, and the bad. The good, again, like I talked about, the opening sequence, that whole thing. The car chase I spoke about earlier. Some of the stunt work was pretty good. Wouldn't call it great as it was in the previous installment, but it was still pretty good here. Fair to say it was still pretty good here. Okay, something that's okay is the villains. Villains are pretty kind of basic. They don't really do a lot in this movie. They're barely in screen. They're really just there to be shot at, pretty much. And something bad. I can't think of anything right now, but I probably could think about something if I gave it like a few days. Anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video or any of my other content, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.